Hello everyone, this is Jack Clock, and welcome back to another episode of the Cast of Zorro. This time I will be joined by King Goldmod and Sean.
Hello?
And,
Hello.
Today...
Hello,
Hello,
I am Sean.
Hello, I'm the resident nutcase, Western addict, and tactical shooter player, Goldmod.
That is honestly so real of you. I'm glad to have you guys on for this episode because, oh boy, there is a lot. Let's start with some news first. Let's get some... There is good news, bad news, and mixed news. I'll start with the mixed news first. Oh, bless you. Sorry, my cat sneezed. There is, yet again, a new Zorro television show that is out. Paramount Plus's Zorro, starring Jean Dujardin as the titular Zorro / Diego de la Vega. However, there is a slight catch to this. While the show is out, it is only out in France.
Region lock-in.
Yeah, essentially the show has been region locked, not only just like in France, but the streaming service that you need to have a separate streaming service to watch it, which is also French exclusive, so good luck pirating it or using a VPN.
I'll give it time. People on the...
Currently, unless you live within France itself, there is no way on earth that you can watch this show, which is... Oh, God.
Give it time,
give it time. Not just that, but the licensing website for Zorro did list that around Q4 this year, which is starting now, we'll get more info on the
export.
On more exports and foreign releases of the show, which is good. Because I very much remember some of the struggle that some of my friends went through in places like Europe and stuff, waiting for the Sequoia Studios Zorro to drop. And, oh my god, the less said about Zorro La Espada La Rosa, the better. That show has been out for almost 20 years, and it has never gotten...
It is on Tubi.
It has never gotten any English translation.
It is on Tubi. It's on Tubi. You can watch it, but there is no English subtitles for it. They never commissioned English subtitles for it, but you can watch it in the States, now on Tubi. But there's no way to understand what the hell is going on.
Exactly. It is mind-boggling. I don't understand why ZPI and Telemundo have not at least subtitled it.
I assume it's the breadth of content. Haven't seen it. Isn't it like a long show that went on for a good long while?
It's 115 episodes, I believe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a lot of subtitling.
Heck yeah. 150 episodes of constantly turning to your Mexican friend and saying, "Hey, man, what did they just say?"
God,
What did they say?
Because these episodes, not only are there like a bajillion episodes, but they're also really long. But as for this show, I don't know the episode length time, but it's around 10 episodes. So, thankfully, it should not be as much to translate compared to La Espada La Rosa.
Oh, okay, so Jean Dujardin, he's a comedic actor, right? That's his, he mainly leans towards comedic, with the odd serious role. Yeah. What are the odds that's going to be hell to translate? Like, language barrier.
Apparently, from what I've been told, Jean Dujardin has a very uniquely French comedic style.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's gonna be hellish to translate. I can only imagine because there's an Italian spaghetti Zorro that came out in 1968, The Nephews of Zorro. You've definitely, for those in the audience, you've definitely heard Crow talk about this when she's on the air, but The Nephews of Zorro, when I translated it with the help of a friend of mine, who's also Italian, she warned me beforehand that a lot of the jokes that Franco and Shizio make in that movie don't even make sense in Italian, let alone in an English dub or English subs. So apparently, it's something similar to that with the Jean Dujardin
I assume it's classier and more well done. I hope.
Yeah, definitely. I can honestly. I think you can't really get as low brow as Nephews of Zorro unless you literally watch the Zorro porno.
I'm sorry, there's a what now?
Oh, you do not know about the erotic adventures of El Zorro? We'll definitely have to talk about that at some point when I run out of content.
Rule 34.
We'll talk about it when we're demonetized.
We'll talk about it when we're running out of sponsors.
That is completely fair. Or just running out of Zorro content to talk about.
Well, I think we will be soon, considering some announcements and all the new stuff coming, that we might actually have something to chew on for a good year or two.
That is true, because, getting to the good news now, not only is the Sequoia Studios Zorro show out, not only is the Paramount Plus Zorro kind of out, but also, does anyone remember the Robert Rodriguez Zorro television show that was supposed to be being made?
It got canned alongside that Powerpuff Girls one.
Here's the thing. It got canned when it was going to, like, ABC or something, I think. Then it got picked up by the CW and got canned again alongside Powerpuff.
I know there's other CW shows.
Now, it is being picked up and now is given a third chance at life by, I believe, CBS.
It's gone from a major network to a cable network to another major network.
Yeah, honestly, it seems like a massive upgrade. And,
yeah, because CW sucks.
Not only that, but apparently, there's a few new people who are joining and replacing some of the people who were going to be in the CW version.
So I assume they're going to have to make another pilot.
Wait, what?
They're going to have to make another pilot, so they have to resell it to CBS, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're gonna have to sell because they previously had like at least 7 episodes commissioned by the CW, but I imagine they're probably gonna have to go through the whole damn process again.
Yes, because it's a new network.
With CBS. Oh god, that's gonna suck.
Yeah, it's Robert Rodriguez. He's always working.
But honestly, I'm just really impressed. I thought that this show was going to be either in development hell forever or just canceled and never talked about again. But honestly, I'm just happy. Like,
oh yeah, the show is Lady Zorro. The show concept, by the way, is Lady Zorro. We forgot to mention that.
Oh, yeah, I've mentioned the plot before, but that was a while ago when it was actually being made.
Well, this is a refresher.
It is about a woman who learns that she is a descendant of the original Zorro, and she's in like a kind of like a cyberpunk style future, or like post-apocalyptic. Sources tend to vary a lot, and there's not much concrete info.
It's somewhere in Detroit.
According to the source, it says Texas, but honestly, I have no clue.
I am so excited for Cyberpunk Texas.
Really?
That's like everything about your past like couple sentences describing this show just sounds like the greatest thing possible.
Yeah,
it's either going to be the coolest thing ever or it's going to suck.
And honestly, like, it's being made by Robert Rodriguez, like...
Well, produced, oversaw, but yes.
Yeah, like, this seems to be one of his big passion projects, too, so this is something he's taking very seriously, and, like...
Most projects he works on are... The guy works mostly independent, so naturally that happens.
Yeah, completely fair, but, like...
I should really watch his, Mexico trilogy sometime.
But, like, even this, like... Even if you're not insanely excited about this concept, the fact that we're getting... not 1, not 2, but 4 Zorro shows being released or worked on in the span of this decade.
Oh yeah, the Disney one.
Plus the Disney Plus one. Although, apparently...
Whatever the hell that is.
It's still being worked on right now, apparently. I literally just got info today. It's still being worked on, but not much else info to really warrant a section. But,
My hopes are not high for that one because it's Disney Plus and they're trying.
But like the fact that we're getting so many new Zorro live action projects is vindicating.
Maybe not a film, but we're getting shows. 4 shows up the ass.
I don't mind if it's not movies. Like I know some people are like the only way Zorro can fully come back is through a movie, and I'm like maybe, but at the same time, since the 50s, Zorro has also thrived so much in television as well, and I feel like that's just as an important part of the character's DNA as film. And well,
I mean, as we all know, the fans on Facebook will never shut up about that.
Yeah, I guess so. But like Zorro television has been a huge part of this character's life, and the fact that the character's being revived through television is honestly really cool. First with the Sequoia Studios Zorro, and now with the Paramount Plus Zorro, and then next with the this upcoming Lady Zorro show, and then somewhere down the line Disney Plus. We're getting so many Zorro shows, and it's gonna be so fun to compare and contrast all of them. Because, like, already...
Do you like the show Zorro? Do you like the show Zorro? Do you like the show Zorro? Or do you like the show Zorro?
Yeah, they better not just name it Zorro again, or I swear to God...
I personally would prefer it if they also all secretly got together and decided, hey, let's not release all of these shows in the same year so that people won't be looking like, okay, are we looking for Zorro 2024, the normal one, or the French one?
Real. Like, oh my God, they seriously better name it something else other than Zorro. I know for a fact the Disney Plus one is gonna be called Zorro. I know for a fact it will be.
It's such a Disney thing to do. Let's just call it Zorro, even though there's 2 other Zorro shows in the same medium, both for streaming, also called Zorro, also with similar stylistic choices.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, let's see, there's the Disney one, there's the Family Channel one, there's the Sequoia Studios one, there's the Paramount Plus one, there's gonna be the...
two Disney Zorros.
Plus one, and like, that's like 5 in total, and if the CBS Zorro winds up also being called Zorro, that's gonna be 6 shows that are just going to be called Zorro.
That one, like, that one they'll probably call it Lady Zorro or Zorro Blade of Steel or something like that.
Yeah, or something
because
like that.
It's got its own concept. It's got its own concept. They'll run with a different title, likely.
Yeah, like, I mean, they better do that. Because, like...
if you call Lady Zorro, like, I appreciate the sentiment, but at the same time, screw you for doing that, because now I'm confused.
Yeah, I mean, like, this character's supposed to be just Zorro and not Lady Zorro, so I have no clue at this rate, but, like, I don't...
We know that it's a female Zorro, and it may be futuristic, and it has Robert Rodriguez attached to it, and it may or may not be in production.
And that's it, yeah. We know the same amount of details in 2024 that we did in 2021, so... Take that as you will. I'm just basically reporting that it is alive again. And
they gave it a bit of EMP. What's EMP? What's the thing at hospitals? You put out the charge. What do you call it? Charge, medical charge, the charge. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and honestly, like, it could come out. It could not come out. I don't know. Like. I just need them to give more information for me to really, like, decide if I fully should get excited. For now, I'm just cautiously optimistic because we've been through this song and dance 2 times before.
Nintendo in 2013 reporting on Game & Warrior for the 8th time.
But yeah, I feel like that is definitely all for that show because, again, there's so few details. Another kind of small bit of good news is Zorro Man of the Dead, the Sean Gordon Murphy comic series. They came out with some hot sauce. There's just some hot sauce products.
Will be on the hot ones?
No, I do not think that Zorro or Sean Gordon Murphy is going to be in Hot Ones. I'm sorry.
Here's
Damn.
here's a
Because they
great
got Donald Duck and forgot to credit the animators.
here's a great idea. What if we, the Zorro podcast, reviewed the Zorro hot sauces?
I don't do hot sauces. Ever since
I would die.
Billy Mitchell has a hot sauce.
I would die.
Okay, it's okay. You guys send me the hot sauces. I will review them.
Alright, fair, I guess. But, again, I mostly just wanted to mention that there's
a hot sauce for this comic based off Zorro.
Yeah, but the last bit of news that we're going to be getting into is not positive, though. This is kind of very late information, but as of August 2024, Alain Delon, the actor who played Zorro in the 1975 spaghetti western simply titled Zorro, has passed away. He was
personally not from. Didn't he pass away in his sleep?
Yes, he was 88. He was 88 years old.
Yeah, he actually years ago he was talking about South and
euthanasia.
Thank you. He was actually considered that years ago, and so I'm very surprised that he died naturally. That was both a relief, but also a bit of a shock that he actually did die naturally, considering his health at the time.
Yeah, I think
what was going on that made him consider euthanasia?
He was, I think it was his health was in really poor condition. He was falling apart.
Yeah,
poor guy.
Yeah, apparently apparently he was in a lot of pain and stuff like that near the end of his life. I think I can't really make any comments about why he didn't go through with it, but from what I remember, he spent the last few years of his life with his family, especially his son, and I imagine he probably just wanted as much time with them as possible. During his life, they didn't have the greatest relationship. I'm not too fair.
A lot of marriages.
What I was gonna say was I imagine he probably wanted to spend the last few years at least with just trying to repair the relationship with his son. I can't really make any comments on it since his private life
that's not our place here.
Yeah, it's not really our business, and the fact that he has passed away is honestly just.
But what a career he left!
What a career he did indeed leave.
Samurai, Zorro.
Yeah, because
those are the big ones I've seen. I've also seen
the Black Tulip. He for anyone who's not familiar with Alain Delon's career, he wasn't just.
I've seen 2 other films he was in.
He wasn't
besides 2 obvious ones I just mentioned.
He was.
I saw him in a film called. Okay, you continue first.
What I was gonna say was he wasn't just beloved in as Zorro, although in many countries around the world he was their definitive Zorro.
He was a very good heavy.
Even Jean Dujardin credited him somewhat when he wasn't, glazing Guy Williams in his interviews. But all around the world too, even in places you wouldn't expect like China during the Cultural Revolution, where Western movies and TV were being flat out banned by the Maoist government, his little Zorro movie managed to make it into there and was beloved by so many people.
No cap.
Yeah, it's. So I was going to mention Alain Delon's career. He was a very prolific, but he was often casted as assassins or as hitmen. That was the thing. These are gangster movies. which is a bit interesting because he did the Zorro movies in Black Tulip as sort of like a, hey, I want to play a good guy for once. So like Richard Burton and Rodriguez Zorro, he wants to play the good guy for once for the kids, you know.
Yeah.
But he was very prolific as a heavy or as a protagonist, anti-hero.
Mm.
I've seen him in a few other films where he played that kind of role. Serpico with Burt Lancaster, which is a spy CIA conspiracy movie, and Big Guns, an Italian cop film where he plays a hitman. Sort of like John Wick in the 70s.
But yeah, essentially like since like the 50s, Alain Delon had basically built a massive career in film and eventually television, from what I think I've been told, in basically doing all kinds of stuff. He usually, as you mentioned, like gangster movies, but also swashbucklers, and a few
westerns.
a few westerns and stuff. And even in his old age, he was still playing characters and stuff like that all the way into the 2010s. And
very prolific.
Genuinely, like one of the most prolific French actors in film history. He was absolutely beloved in his home country, and even in many other countries, there was a lot of people very loyal to him, and like genuinely really loved him all the way until the end. And for all of the
was popular in Japan.
For all of the guy's faults, it's genuinely really inspiring to see how much love and passion he had for filmmaking and how much happiness he brought to people on the screen. And
this guy's staring stare.
And I just think it's just like with Henry Darrow's passing. I'll admit, like, Alain Delon's passing has hit me harder than I expected. For the past few years, I've been just kind of preparing myself for him passing away, but like when it actually happened, there's
been a lot of deaths this year, a lot of big names, crazily.
Yeah.
But, they're all getting old.
In the past few years, and when it comes to like Zorro stuff, we've been losing a lot of people too. Like Henry Darrow's the one that's always gonna break my heart the most, and Michael Tylo, as well as a few other actors, especially from the New World Zorro show, and now Alain Delon. It's genuinely, I know many of these people are living to like ripe old age, but like as someone who's very young, I never really got to know them in the prime of their lives, and
well, I think that's the kind of phenomenon I've experienced today with old films and actors and creators. When you start getting into them, they're about to die. It's an interesting phenomenon I think we're all experiencing in this current generation.
Yeah.
The last of the old Hollywood and old film across the sea and all that kind of stuff is going away. They're fading away.
I think what Jack is trying to say is it feels like he's losing his grandparents again and again and again with each old actor who passes.
Yeah, that's pretty apt.
Yeah, that can be a nightmare scenario, I can imagine.
Because Alain Delon, his version of Zorro, while not my all-time favorite, was still pretty close to my heart. And now
it's essential. It's an essential.
Yeah, and now rewatching the movie again for this podcast episode, it feels so different. Every frame of Alain Delon in this movie just makes me feel sad.
Stages of grief.
Yeah. Like, it's been a month. I don't know, it still hurts a lot. I
remember him for any good thing he's done in film, at least.
Yeah.
That's the idea of memories.
That is true. I do have very good memories of watching.
Kind of depressing.
Yeah, and just I've never really handled death well as all, but
That's fair.
But I think we've talked enough about his passing itself. I think we should move on to the legacy that he left behind and talking about Zorro 1975 itself. So...
Yeah, good movie.
Yes!
Sean, I know that you've been watching the movie... I know you've been watching the movie a lot to prepare for this episode. Is there anything you'd like to open with?
Absolutely. So, before I begin with my thoughts and feelings on the movie, I would like to skip to the very end of the movie, to the final fight scene. There is a piano player, and he is playing on his piano. However, there isn't any audio of piano music in the movie.
I think I spotted that, actually, in my last viewing.
I did not.
Because
I did not know about this. That really makes me want to mention how, in my original review, when I first watched it, yeah, this is sword fight. I expected more music over it, but then I realized, oh wait, it's an Italian movie. They never have music over the action scenes.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's just a lot of Italian films. They seem to avoid. They like putting music during intermission, in between scenes, walking scenes, staring scenes, that stuff. They still don't put it alongside the action. It happens, but it's more. They often let the sound design breathe, the dubbing sound breathe a lot, such as the sword fight here, which is uninterrupted sword fight noises. There's dialogue here. A comic relief joke here with the fact that not Gonzalez, it's, what's it?
Garcia.
Garcia. I get all these guys mixed up. The sergeant. You get that, you get the dog. You get Zorro seemingly... Okay, I have a theory about this movie, I'll get to that later. Zorro avoiding death like 10 times when he really should have died from height, falling, and appearing. You got Stanley Baker, who I think is dubbed in this movie, because I had a realization while watching. Losing his mind in a pitch perfect villain performance, I think is highlighted in this film as a whole.
Zorro is dead!
Yeah, that stuff. That's good. Even if I think it's dubbed. I think he didn't dub himself. It's still like really good. Just watching his face, he's tattering at the mind,
True,
falling apart. The scene itself has a certain mise-en-scene, a certain framing to it. The presentation of it is what is just a homage to Scaramouche. It's one of those homages that maybe can outdo the original. Maybe not in scale or in presentation, but certainly in its visual storytelling. You know, I think you brought up. I think the first time someone brought this up on this podcast, I wasn't there, but I listened to it. They did bring up how the fight tells a story in that Hong Kong style. You know, Zorro does the thing with the candles. You know, the whole looping back to the beginning with the candles, showing that Zorro clearly the ability to like get. Showing that the bad guy is like finally realizing that he was right the whole time, and Don Diego is Zorro, or the governor is Zorro, and then at the very end he gets the realization, he's like, hell yeah, and he dies.
Yeah, like he goes out, but not without that final realization that he was right.
I'm not crazy. But I am crazy.
I love when Zorro stories do that. When the villain is starting to suspect that Diego is Zorro, and everyone else is like, no. And like somehow they find out like that he is, and they're like, I knew it. Except Monasterio, he spends the last minutes of Walt Disney's Zorro being like, oh, I can't believe that I was wrong. I'm so stupid.
I'm getting fired and getting replaced. The most iconic villain, and the way it ends is getting fired, right? Didn't he get kicked out or something? Being arrested?
Yeah, essentially. So the regional governor that showed up, like the whole reason why the regional governor that shows up in that episode is specifically to arrest him, but he didn't tell him until like he was about to kill Diego.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's been a while since I watched the compilation movie, so I need a bit of a refresher there. All I know is I kind of just walked out of the story, even though it's like the most iconic Zorro villain out there, probably. Maybe, question mark.
That is true, yeah. It's like,
It's like, I think, I try to think of an example, but I really can't. I guess, the guy from the beginning, first half of Vice City, Vice City, the game, right? Grand Theft Auto game?
I haven't.
Ooh, that one was a little before my time. I have only played Grand Theft Auto 5.
Well, I played through the first half, and in the first half, there's this kind of fake setup bad guy who's like this big drug dealer type, and you're trying to hunt him down or whatever, and you get rid of him, and then the game continues, the story just continues, but you're like, you kind of miss him because even though he was a bad guy, he was incredibly funny because he was just insane. Like, he shoots his VCR tape and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like, you kind of miss the presence of that first villain because they kind of set the tone so well. But we're talking about Monasterio now. We're supposed to be talking about the 75 movie.
That is true, yeah. And Huerta is such a good villain, by the way. Like,
it kind of makes it's part of what I do have criticism analysis of the movie, among many other ones. It has an uneven tone. I like it. I think it's very strong. It comes close to being a favorite of mine, among the best of mine. Zorro things from it, yeah. But it does suffer from an uneven tone, which is normal for Italian films, but this one especially shows, because it goes from very slapsticky, very farcical, swashbuckler goofiness to, bueno, Huerta, you're a criminal. It's not too extreme, but it's very blatantly so tonally switching at multiple points. It never becomes too jarring, but it's very noticeable.
Oh yeah, it's very noticeable.
The serious parts are super serious.
I never thought...
super serious, and it's a hot stuff.
I never thought it was a bad thing, honestly. I like the tone switching a lot, because it felt...
I don't mind it, because I watch a lot of I've seen quite a few Italian westerns. They do that, especially comedic ones. They'll switch from slapstick goofery to murder on the flip of a hat.
Oh god, tell me
so
about
I didn't...
Because I've been watching so many spaghetti Zorros, and I'm like, did they really think that scene was appropriate to show after the scene where the guy farts in front of the sergeant or whatever?
That happens. And I'm just talking about Italian films in general, especially spaghetti western comedies. That's a very prevalent thing. Which, speaking of spaghetti westerns with interesting tones, Duccio Cesare, the guy who directed this movie, the 1975 Zorro. Duccio Cesare, he actually directed another film with Alain Delon, Big Guns, aka Tony Azanta. His big first western film he directed was A Pistol for Ringo, and that film has a very similar tone to the 1975 Zorro. It has about a, except that film's a black comedy. It's not like goofy like this film is. It has goofiness, but it still has that sense of perverse violence that occasionally appears, which I find very interesting.
Interesting, alright. And so, like...
I probably not making any sense. You really have to look into the guy's career to understand what I'm talking about, but the director of this movie has a certain style to his films. He seems to be more traditionally framed. He has certain scenes that will repeat, which I'll get to. And the film itself has certain tone, this mix between comedy and violence, which maybe it's more comedy here in this film, but there's still that certain mix of tones that is very prevalent in the director's work.
Yeah, and it's like,
Tarantino. He likes that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But, like, what I was going to say about Zorro 1975's tone is I feel like it added a lot to the movie. Like, it is something that both kids and their parents can watch, if that makes sense. Like, the kid...
Even if it's a bit divisive. I've seen some reviews of this movie. I respect your opinion, but this movie seems to be very divisive. Either you love it, or you think it's stupid. That's generally the consensus with the movie, and I can understand why.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the Italian Zorro.
Yeah.
It's Alain Delon doing goofy stuff, and they got Sally Baker's insane villain. So.
Yeah, they definitely... I have noticed that about Alain Delon Zorro. It is so divisive, but not heavily so. Like on one hand, you'll have people being like, "Oh, this is my Zorro. This is the greatest Zorro ever made," and you have other people who are like, "I don't know. It was kind of weird. I don't like that the dog made human noises. It was kind of weird."
I got to that part. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I watched that part of the film. Like, it is not making human noises. I think that's just a stock sound effect. It's maybe a human making that noise, but it did not register.
Assassin's Barks and stuff is a guy going...
I mean, it's very clearly a guy doing dog noises, but... Yeah. What registered to me was the weird trumpet scene where the dude
that's
was...
actually in my notes. The trumpet scene. It's very strange, because first off, you have the guy doing the trumpet. It happens 4 times during the Christmas sequence. First, it's the guy with the monkey noise. The second time, I don't know what the hell it is. It's like a flap. It's like a whop.
Like that, yeah.
What the hell? That's very strange for a 1975 movie. Yeah. And last time, it just plays the Zorro theme from the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is iconic short in Italian movies. So have someone hum the theme song diegetically, like do 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 da 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 da, like that. Used to be in free while my mouth.
Oh, but that theme song within itself encapsulates the divisive, not just the tone, but also the divisive opinions people have about this film, because that theme song, I've seen that make or break how people feel about that movie. It is so funny.
I don't mind it. I do think it's a bit, it's not my favorite Oliver Onion song, but it is fine. It's iconic, it's catchy, it gets the tone, it gets across. Zorro is back, baby! He's back from the 70s!
True.
This is very 70s swashbuckler, revival swashbuckler stuff,
Sure.
like the Musketeers movies, the Lester films. I bring this up, this is part of that wave of 70s swashbucklers, the Lester films, Swashbuckler, that film with Robert Shaw, Odyssey.
Yeah, it's like, especially for a lot of people, the last time they saw Zorro was not the myriad of spaghetti Zorros, but most likely one of the Golden Age stuff or the Disney stuff. So, like, Alain Delon coming back as Zorro, that was their modern Zorro for the time. It was like...
Yeah, it was part of, as I mentioned, that wave of 70s swashbucklers.
Yeah.
There was a Robin Hood movie that was just more of an emotional film. You had the Lester films. I keep bringing them up because both this and the Lester films have a certain handle of the aristocrat scenes. They're very decadent in the sense that everyone's kind of miserable, but everything's so fancy looking, but everyone's just an asshole, and I love that.
Yeah,
it's kind of like
it's definitely made for a very easy time to root against them for Zorro. Like, Diego is surrounded by just jackals.
I bring this up. Zorro, Don Diego in this movie is interesting because he's introduced first off from the dust. He comes from the dust. And he looks like the man with no name. He looks like a bad guy from another piece of Zorro movie, but he's Zorro, or will become Zorro.
He's Diego.
And
he's like,
so the film has this arc, I think, possibly. I also bring up the dust part because the movie has a looping ending. He comes from the dust, from the sands, and he rides back into the sands. The movie has a bit of very religious theme, especially for a Zorro film, which is something to say. And I think the movie may be literally being dust to dust. I think that may be the theme of the movie, potentially. I thought this up while watching it recently.
But by the time that he goes back to the dust, he's completely a changed man in some ways.
Yes.
But in some ways, he's regressed, which is also really interesting. In some ways, he's moved forward. In some ways, he's stepped back. And I love that arc that he has.
I bring up the triple layered disguise. Don Diego is disguised as the governor, who's disguised as Zorro.
Yeah, it's like he's disguised as two different people, and one of them is disguised as the other, and like,
dang, that's so meta.
It's so interesting. It's like
I wonder if there was a deliberate twist on the formula. Like they deliberately wanted to shake things up. Like, okay, everyone knows who Don Diego and Zorro. There might be two other videos. The writers should probably let's do something a bit wacky this time. Something more intense. Well, not intense. More intensifying the deceitfulness, the facade, increasing it further. So, which is the whole movie plays out like a battle of brains alongside Brawn. Because you got Huerta and Zorro both trying to outmatch the other. Well, this is a common thing in Zorro media. I feel like it is most intensified here, most played out, for better or worse.
You're not wrong. Like, and what I was gonna say too is like not only is it like like this intense game of like mental chess between him and Huerta, like it's something that you will see in other stuff like the Disney Zorro to an extent.
Yes, that's my story.
But like it especially ramps up in the second half of the movie when Huerta starts.
Yeah, it should becomes the plot of the movie. It becomes the plot.
Yeah, it becomes because Zorro 1975 as a movie is weirdly serialized.
Yeah, I mentioned it. It's kind of incoherent. So the opening scene when I first saw this movie confused the hell out of me because I thought we were meeting the bad guy, but it was actually just an old friend. I didn't know what the plot of this movie was, and I still had to pick up on it through rewatches.
Like
Sorry, continue.
No,
continue.
No, it's what I was gonna say was like at first it's very serialized and stuff like that, or episodic. Episodic's a better choice even, but as soon as Huerta starts to suspect Diego to be Zorro, or the governor to be Zorro, then like it starts to feel a lot more coherent, and it's really interesting seeing him try and like hide his idea. Like him playing two different people in the same wagon is so ingenious.
My personal favorite bit is when he puts the hit out on himself.
That is so bold.
I love it.
I absolutely love that.
Imagine having a party for your aunt's wedding with this random German soldier, and then you're like, oh yeah, I should probably, make it so Huerta doesn't know who I am. You're like, oh, I'll send a note to myself by way of the dog named Assassin. It's like, oh.
Hey, put some respect on Fritz von Merkel.
I love Fritz. I love Fritz, but he's goofy. He's a very brave man, but he's very goofy.
He is very goofy, yes. But you are totally right. I love that, at his not aunt's wedding, he just randomly crashes it by sending himself a letter and then overreacting like hell to it. It is so funny.
And then he uses it later on to say, I can't be Zorro, because Zorro's trying to kill me.
Yeah, and it's that's used for, all the way up until the final fight. That's used all the way up until then as an alibi for Diego not to be Zorro. Because otherwise, what proof is there that he's not?
Yeah. The alarm system, he just has the servant do it for him while he's gone. That's Simon Fritz.
That was creative.
The best part, that was Fritz's idea. The whole alarm system.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that was his idea.
He's like, no, sir. You see this, you pull this when I tell you to. Otherwise, I'll barge in here, that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Fritz. Giacomo Rossi Stewart's most iconic performance, ladies and gentlemen.
I love Fritz so much. He is just so real.
I am inviting him to my Brits.
Real.
I like how he's the bodyguard. He is a soldier, but he's not affiliated with Huerta in any way. He's just a hired bodyguard guy who just happens to be there. He has no affiliation with Huerta. He's just a guy. I love it.
He's just this random Prussian bodyguard dude who's just there, who's previously even served Miguel's uncle, and he's just there. He's just vibing.
And there's no script reason for production reason for his character to exist. There was no German involvement in the film, so I can't see that was the reason why his character was there, because he's played by an Italian. So it's not like it was a thing the Germans requested, because there was no German involvement in it, what was typical for this film at the time. So what I can only assume is someone in the script thought that would be funny.
Yeah. What if we just had some dude in here who was just a Prussian soldier, and he had a really funny, thick German accent, and he hammed it up like hell?
Well, okay, that accent...
And it works!
Okay, the thing is, I'm wondering now, because we see this film in the English dub version, which was likely the version sold across the world anyways, but I wonder how it plays out in the Italian version, which I want to check out sometime.
Or the French version.
Okay, we have this debate. Jack thinks this film is French. I think this film is more Italian, and we'll never get over this, I don't think. So we will avoid the issue.
Alright, fair.
I will weigh in. I think it is whatever you guys agree it is. I'm just kidding. The tone's pretty Italian.
Yeah, the director, Tukio Tsari, I noticed one thing that he did in another film. You know the garden scene?
The garden scene?
With the love interest.
Oh, the one where Zorro's
he's peering at the bushes.
He's like, "You're insects!" Like that?
I don't remember exactly, but so basically in that scene where he's just talking alone with her, the scene is shot in a very it's shot in a very similar way to the garden scene in A Pistol for Ringo. The characters do not meet in the same frame. They walk towards the frame, and it cuts between that. I find that a very interesting directorial repeat. Another interesting decision creatively is the light influence of kung fu movies I want to bring up, a theory of mine. First off, the Hall of Weapons. This was 2 years after Enter the Dragon, which kind of popularized that kind of Hall of Weapons type scene in modern action cinema. And near the end fight, there's this one woman who is in the background who he does some karate chops on people, and she looks vaguely Asian. I think I could just be racist here.
She is. Her character's name is also Tyra Lily.
Yeah, I don't think the movie never makes that clear because it just kind of appears out of nowhere. So that combined with the Hall of Weapons in the final fight, I want to bring up there maybe a slight influence from like kung fu movies at that time, because there were some Italian movies that kind of parodied the genre, usually featuring actors like Brad Harris or Gordon Mitchell and that kind of stuff, big bodybuilding type guys. I just want to bring this up because it's a 70s movie, a mid-70s movie, so it's going to be some Hong Kong influence in it.
Another Hong Kong influence might be the Chinese assassin near the beginning.
Oh yeah, the guy who
one of them, the guy that threw knives.
Yeah,
I bring it up. Yeah, the possible kung fu Hong Kong influence, possibly the reason why the film got into China in the first place, but those are more Hong Kong, which was British at the time, so I don't know. Maybe it was just the style of the time. The stunts, they're very acrobatic. They're not the most acrobatic of fight scenes compared to some Zorro stuff, but they're very about movement and stunts, which is very Hong Kong ethos. But the market scene comes to mind. One of my notes is just Rainbow Six Vegas.
Rainbow Six.
Okay, so the scene where they're breaking out of the prison and they're doing the rope climb. That's it. That's the entire reason for the notes.
Yeah, okay, fair. Honestly, that scene is so well done, but
yeah, it is well done. Although
it's not a scene people talk about as much, but like
it's pretty fun. Although when I first watched it, my dad made a comparison to The Hobbit, which I have not seen.
I have seen The Hobbit, and
there's a scene where they go down the barrels and that one scene that Zorro moves.
Oh yeah! Oh,
wait,
I didn't even think about the barrel scene.
The cartoon Hobbit or the live action Hobbit?
The live action one, unfortunately.
But I actually quite like the live action Hobbit movies. But anyways, what I was gonna say was, honestly, that whole scene does kind of remind me of some of the action scenes in The Hobbit where they're just kind of running around getting chased by villains and stuff like that.
Except here, Zorro is not trapped in the room with the villains. The villains are trapped in the room with him.
Yeah, honestly, fair, because he set up like a bajillion like traps and like stuff like that.
The villains were outside all day waiting for him, but he was actually in the prison the whole time, setting everything up for like hours, I can only assume. Again, dedication to the bit.
Which is really funny. It's just like this whole time the soldiers they're like, oh yeah, Zorro's just gonna walk in through the front door. We're just gonna gun him down. And then
Zorro's not that stupid. Also because he knows the plan.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't know that.
They don't know that. Dramatic irony.
And like all of the soldiers inside the building, most of them are not really guarding it. Most of them are sleeping or on break. And
I read this one a little bit. So Zorro and the love interest are sneaking around, and then they approach a bunch of guards at the table, and one of the guards just looks at them like, it does a double take, and they just Zorro and the girlfriend just they slide away a little bit, and the guy's like, guards! It's totally casual because he knows that he set the trap already. So I can just walk.
Exactly. He sets up one of the ones that I like is when the soldiers are all going for their muskets and stuff, and the whole thing just falls on them.
I like how they don't even show how that works. They just show that it falls over. There's no context given for why it falls over, what the trap was. It's just that it falls over.
In practicality, he probably sawed the thing holding it to the wall, but it's just really funny seeing like Zorro defy the laws of physics just to mess with these soldiers, and the guy getting hit in the head with a cannonball is also just really funny.
Oh yep, forgot to mention that the whole prison sequence. It's when the movie's more farcical nature is at its best, because the movie just devolves into a series of gags, but the gags are in the surface of the plot, so it actually kind of works.
Yeah, it's like I really like when they mix the action with the comedy, because there's some really serious fight scenes, like the one in the very beginning or the very end, funny enough, but a lot of the middle ones are like, especially the one where he fights Garcia, which I
not even would you want to do it in this movie? Would you want to consider that a fight though? It's not very fair.
Oh, okay, I'm also counting with the soldiers too.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Again, I mentioned that earlier, the stunts. There's some crazy falls in this movie. I mean, they obviously had trained stunt performers in the gear. Italian stuntmen are crazy stuntmen, as we all know. But, yeah, the whole sequence with stunts, it's very nicely shot and well handled. If it kind of goes on a bit too long, I think. They did the ladder gag like 3 times, I'm pretty sure. It just goes on and on. It's a good sequence. They really draw it out. I think that's my issue with that movie. They just draw it out.
Maybe 1 or 2 of the gags could have been cut out, but I also, it's one of the big highlights for me outside of the obvious scene. I just really like seeing him run around and humiliate an entire platoon of soldiers.
That's funny. I mean, yeah, that's a Zorro thing. It's the thing people come to see movies for. It's like Godzilla. You come to see that part, it's not going to be the most obvious or most blatant part. I mean, the most, what's the word? Most upfront part of the movie. It's not going to always be there, but that's the part you come for. I guess. Parts of the mission.
Yeah, I can kind of see that, like, but like, I don't know, like, I just thought, like, it was, like, really well done, and, like, the stunt work blows my mind. They, multiple times, a soldier plummets off of a roof and, like, bounces.
Italian stuntmen are crazy, or were crazy.
Yeah, I remember watching a bunch of Spaghetti Zorro stuff, and I'm like, half the time I'm like, how did they do that?
Well, here's the secret. Most of the stuntmen are also in the film as supporting characters.
Oh.
If you ever watch a Zorro movie and his sidekick, who is not Bernardo for once, it's just some random guy, is running around like a nutcase, it's like people in the stuntman in a supporting role.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, it's a common thing. Like, Benito Stefanelli, he played bad guys a lot, but he also was a master of arms, so he could do stunts and gunfight stuff. So he often did the choreography for scenes, but also played bad guys. I think you can actually spot him in some of the Dollars movies. If you, like, look in the background, see him. He's got the beard. Big beard. Not big beard, but he's got a beard. Yeah. I don't think he's in this movie, though, but there's a lot of those kind of stuntmen. Italian stuntmen are very brave, let's just say that. There's a bit from a documentary about Italian crime films in the 70s, around the same time as this. A documentary where they talk about the films in retrospect, and they mentioned stuntmen. And there's this one story, I think it was John Saxon, or maybe it was it John Saxon? Fucking don't know. It was one of the actors in the documentary. They got one of the appearances, and they said, by the time, I think it was Christopher, no, it wasn't. It was an actor in the documentary, and they were discussing a stuntman. And the guy was like, well, by the time they finished discussing, which road, we're going to have to do a stunt when we jump out of this building. By the time we finish our sentence, the stuntman's already jumped out the building. Yeah, the Italian stuntmen they do crazy car stunts, they do crazy horse stunts, they do crazy jumping stunts. And so in the Zorro film, 70s Zorro film, you see a lot of good stunts, a lot of good falls, let's just say.
Yeah, like, those stuntmen are crazy impressive at their jobs and stuff like that. Half the time, I usually would think it was like a doll or something like that they threw or whatever, but no, that's just a guy who is able to just tumble off of a rooftop, bounce onto like a tent, and then like, oh my god, it's insane.
Yeah, it's the only reason Alain Delon likely can't do all of his own stunts because it's an action production. So,
yeah, because like
it's a common face among these movies. The main actors could also do their own stunts. In fact, they're often encouraged to do their own stunt. because the budget is low, and God forbid, the stuntmen are already working as hard as they can.
Yeah, and a lot of Zorro actors typically did a lot of their own stunts. There's only a couple, like a few. Douglas Fairbanks did all of his own stunts. Yeah, that's the thing. Back in the day, the stunt work wasn't really like a.
It was a new thing. It was a new thing at the time.
Yeah, film was very new, and also a lot of the people who were starring in film were either they had a death wish or the people were just built different back then. Because, like, Douglas Fairbanks would just... Have you seen some of the crazy stuff he does in both of his Zorro movies?
I've seen one of them. I know the second one isn't good action, but it's not well regarded. Don Q, I know it has good action, but I've heard it's not well. I heard it's not that great.
Which one?
Don Q.
Don Q is a decent
action movie. I've heard it's a good action movie in terms of its age.
It is a good action movie, and the third act of it's kind of like the Legend of Zorro. The best part of the movie is the third and final act, and the rest is just okay.
This movie doesn't. I guess you could say the same for the 75 Zorro. The third act is when it comes together, but the first two acts aren't bad either at the end of this film, even if it is, as I said, very long. It's 2 hours long, which maybe not that crazy, but it does feel, the film occasionally feels a bit drawn out. It's well paced, but you can feel it's around time, I think.
I'm gonna go up to bat for this movie. I feel like while the third act is absolutely goated, I don't feel like the first and second are comparable to the drag that
of course not.
films like Legend of Zorro could have, because like there's a lot of iconic scenes before the third act in Zorro 1975.
I think the 75 film, I think my main issue with this fact it's just, I think it's the issue of it being episodic, and then suddenly having a coherent plot. You kind of wish it had a more coherent, like, mise-en-scene the whole way through. The film is never, and I would never say it's truly ever dire, but it does skirt with being not the greatest. It becomes great, but I do feel like ever so slightly occasionally threatens to be bad. It never gets bad, but it does threaten it occasionally, I think I would say.
Huh. I guess, like, I don't know, I mean, I feel like someone could do a fan cut of the movie and maybe, like, make a more condensed version, but also at the same time, I love almost every scene in this movie.
That's totally fine.
I'll have to see one of them go.
I feel like the movie has enough charm. There's a lot, I think, it has a very colorful cast of characters, especially for a Zorro movie. It's a Zorro film. I mean, you got some really wacky characters. Fritz, the ant, the dog. Bernardo is particularly crazy in this one.
Yeah, Joaquin, yeah.
Huerta.
Oh my god.
Psychotic.
Yeah.
The most boring character is the love interest, who's barely in the film anyways.
Yeah, and as someone who isn't super crazy about a lot of the romances in Zorro stuff, like, the biggest Zorro romance thing that I do is, like, Diego X Nolan. I ship that in the new show, and that's not canon. That's not even canon. And, like, so if a romance in a Zorro movie isn't great, I'm okay with that.
It comes with the territory. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important. I'm putting John Carmack on board.
Yeah, it's nice. It's charming. It's not really for me, though. That's fine. That's okay.
It's particularly dull in this one, but it serves its purpose, and it's not the worst thing ever. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, there's a love interest in this movie. I forgot that.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, so it's a Zorro thing, like, oh, you gotta have a love interest in it and stuff.
Unless you're the 75s, unless you're the 50s Zorro, then you didn't even bother.
I mean, they tried, but at the same time, yeah, Disney Diego is a chronic fumbler who would only be matched this year by Miguel Bernardau Zorro.
What else? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. The look of the movie. The 75 film has a very dusty, dirty, gritty, grainy look to it. I love it. It's not shiny or clean, even during the nice, clean royalty scenes. Even in those scenes, there's a sense of dirt to it. There's a sense of physicality. It's a nice texture to this movie. I love it. I love the look of 70s movies because they're generally so grainy, gritty. They got a nice texture, physicality. And this film...
Normally I'm not crazy about that kind of look, but for this movie it works so well. Because like, because it fits so well with the tone, because, like, by the time Diego gets to Nueva Aragon...
It is literally dusty. It's a storm.
Yeah, it's dusty, it's a storm, and you quickly realize that the weather matches the terrain, because Nueva Aragon is a hellhole.
Well, it's Spain,
in
but
the story.
In the production, it's Spain, but in the film, it's Nueva Aragon. Just pretend.
I know. I mean, in the movie, it's
a shithole. It is Detroit.
Well, okay. At least Detroit's been getting better recently. Nueva Aragon is like under control of like soldiers running around gunning people down and dragging people through the streets, and people are so afraid of government reprisals that they refuse to talk to anyone.
Yeah. The revolt that happens at the very end, it's very quick. You don't even realize it. Because at the end, the soldiers just like, oh, fuck this, I'm gonna throw my gun down at the very end. But yeah, you get the idea that the place isn't that livable unless you're rich. Which is, oof. That's very potent imagery right there. I mean, that's in every Zorro thing, but I feel like it's most, again, Zorro 1975 will exaggerate a lot of previously established Zorro tropes, like things you've seen in Zorro media. This one will just exaggerate things, for better or for worse. And the 75 Zorro, the village, in other ones, like, I don't know, Marco Zorro, 1940, it's not a good place to live in, but it looks clean enough, it looks livable, has a nice atmosphere, you've got gardens and stuff. This place, no, it's just dirt and dust and death, and I love it.
Exactly. It's like, it is because we have, a lot of Zorro stories will portray the place that Diego lives in, usually like Los Angeles or Capistrano, as usually a really nice place to live in if it weren't for the villains.
Yeah, like it just looks nice.
A lot of the pueblos are, you know, a little bit dirty, but like
it's Pueblo, you know, you're in California.
Like it has a rustic charm to it from like the 19th century. It's like a storybook land.
Yeah, you could sit there. In Nueva Aragon, the environment is actively out to get you. Like it's Africa and Far Cry 2. It's just this hellish the environment does not care about your feelings. And to make things matters worse, neither does the people running the place.
Exactly, and it's like because like in a lot of Zorro stuff, like especially like in Disney Zorro, the Los Angeles and Monterey, they feel so welcome and warm and inviting. But if you compare like if you compare the shops and the tamale stands in Monterey in the 50s Zorro compared to the miserable like tiny markets and stuff in Nueva Aragon where people are too terrified to even talk to strangers lest they be government spies, like it is such a harrowing environment, and that's why it's even more important than ever before for Zorro to show up and save these people, because they have nothing else.
You bring that up. So, first off, in this one, you know, it's one of these Zorro things where it's not his idea, he gets it from someone else. In this case, it's a local legend. I forgot how they introduce it. The kid's like, oh, one day Zorro will come to free all the animals. And then Zorro's like,
yes.
Don Diego's like, oh, what about the people? And the kid's like, the people do not deserve it. They are too cowardly and weak. And then Don Diego's like, oh, shit.
That's one of the things I really wanted to mention about this, because as we were talking about before,
I took note of that.
Yeah, because one of the things I was going to say about Nueva Aragon, sorry, I just wanted to hear what Sean was going to say, but the thing about it is, like, Chico, the character that talks about Zorro, he sums up Nueva Aragon and its effect it has on people the most. For context, Chico is a small child who lives with the Freys, who lives with Father Francisco and the other Freys. He
Friars?
is most like friars. There go. Frey is a singular term. Thank you. Chico is most likely an orphan.
Oh yeah, he's definitely
he's definitely an orphan along with the other children who live there. And he, for the very few years that he has been alive on this earth, he has probably seen some of the most horrible things ever. Constantly, like constant atrocity and all other just horrible things that have happened under this government and the misery of Nueva Aragon. So when he looks Diego, disguised as Miguel, dead in the eye and says, people are too weak and too cruel to deserve freedom, and that the only good man on this earth is about to be carted away to be lashed to the back till bloody, I cannot blame him. I cannot blame this child whatsoever for having such a cynical mindset.
It's both effective in setting the mood, but also darkly funny, because it's kind of like this whole running gag. It's like, oh, it's Zorro, and the last time it's like, oh, it's the angel Gabriel because he's in a church.
Yeah, and it's like at first when I was younger and I saw it, it was very. At first, when I was younger and I saw it as a teenager, I did find Chico's comments about stuff like that to be very funny. But I think as I've gotten older, I just feel really sad. I could just only imagine the utter misery that this child has gone through to basically his only hope outside of Father Francisco, who's basically the only guardian in his life, is a mythological character who won't even bother to free him.
And that's how I think this movie is in this movie. It's the tone. I may say it's uneven, but it is very effective occasionally with its unevenness, capturing that sort of, again, the environment eats you away, people are bastards, everyone's cynical, and the only hope is a somewhat deranged swordsman wearing a costume. Because the Zorro in this movie, I wouldn't say he's unhinged, but he is a bit cuckoo in the head. Lightly.
He's slightly unhinged. I mean, you have to be a little crazy to do what Zorro does, but, like, this guy's noticeably so.
Like, at the end of his first introduction, the first Zorro fight scene, he zooms in on his mask and he says, this is just the beginning. It's like a super, like, Batman-esque moment. It's not Zorro-esque, it's Batman-esque. Which is very, very much a deliberate choice, I believe, to establish that this is the insane Zorro. As a whole.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most, it's a Zorro film about the maddening nature of the environment, the location, the role, and the adversaries. It's the maddening Zorro. It just happens to be funny as fuck.
True, it is funny. It is also kind of badass, too, because I cannot blame this guy for being so unhinged. This place sucks. the people running this place suck. And we need a crazy, like, mildly unhinged sword guy to absolutely beat everyone up and give people hope. And I love that so much about this movie. That's why I love the tone changes so much. This movie has some of the most harrowing, miserable, saddening moments in this franchise, and to only then to be replaced with, like, goofy scenes of Zorro kicking ass and taking names, and it works. And I understand everyone's mileage may vary on that kind of stuff, but for me, it just absolutely lifts my spirit.
And this is the most interesting fact for me. The film is partially maybe accidentally, is a battle western, which is a subtype of spaghetti western focusing on revolutions in Southern America and Mexico. First off, you have the fact that unlike the caballeros and older Zorros, the aristocracy is not noble at all. They're just a bunch of pricks. And you don't feel bad about them being robbed from at all. And then you have the hellish environment. The whole revolution aspect is definitely played out more than ever, with the exception of Marvel Zorro from 1940. And you have the slightly unhinged, kind of mercenary but noble hero at the end of the day. And you get this feeling that, it's a Zapata Western. It's slightly left-leaning, almost communistic. And then you realize the Chinese dub really made it communist, and you're like, that makes sense now.
Exactly.
It's more natural for me because I've seen so many films like The Mercenary. That's a good movie. Companeros, not as good, but pretty fun. I highly recommend you see the 1968 movie The Mercenary by Sergio Corbucci. It appears on Prime and Tubi occasionally. It's a very fun spaghetti western, but also very interesting politically. It's basically a mercenary goes to Mexico and gets involved in the revolution, and you get that kind of same feeling here.
And it's interesting too. It is definitely the most politically left-leaning out of every version of Zorro I can think of, and it's like
it's most overtly political feeling. Again, Italians tend to do that with their films. I feel that a lot. even their right-wing fascistic cop movies feel a bit liberal because of the very nature of Italian cinema.
Yeah, and it's like it's really interesting, like, seeing how overtly revolutionary this film. Because you mentioned before, like, while a lot of people know Zorro as the kind of guy who fights the rich and for the poor, there's a lot of characters who are upper class who are very sympathetic in Zorro and are often allies of the character.
Yeah, the Caballeros and like the older Zorro. Older ones like the 50s show and everything before that. Yeah. That's not back here. That's not back here.
Yeah.
The revolution even comes to the church.
Because you're not gonna be seeing a Nacho Torres or the Caballeros rallying around Zorro like in the silent film or the Curse of Capistrano. They are all sniveling evil assholes in this movie.
Or at least indifferent assholes, but still assholes nonetheless.
Yeah, just indifferent. Like, if not to be actively fought against, then usually to be laughed at.
If not laughed at or fought against, then simply to have been belittled. Definitely, yeah. And that's why I feel like the whole church scene works, because, they're just all assholes. You can rob them in a holy place. It doesn't matter. The priest is still on your side, no matter what.
Yeah, like theoretically, that scene doesn't serve the movie's plot, but it serves the movie's themes, and that's why I think it's important.
I think it also works as a transitional scene, because it's also a bit of a transitional scene, because I think it bridges the line between one conflict to another. Because after it is the mind sequence, the infamous mind sequence where they're arresting everybody.
Which is very rough. Yeah,
it's a scene that's not too uncommon in swashbucklers, but never seen in a lot of Zorro. Just people going ham at each other, just murdering, pillaging, capturing. Except here, it's the government guys doing it, so it's even more horrific. I mean, it's not too chilling to me, because I've seen scenes like this constantly in films and media and even real life, but it is still effective, especially since it comes after such a silly scene.
Definitely, as a Zorro fan, it's very jarring, because usually the violence the soldiers commit is usually very tame. Like, some of the only exceptions are, like, The Mask of Zorro, and even then, Zorro 1975 is even more
guys getting shot in the back.
Like, because we see soldiers gunning people down, riding them through the streets. Like, damn.
This is a very Zapata Western type feel to it. Yeah, the bad guys are very intense. Yeah, very.
It's like
Hono bars not hold.
Because like most Zorro villains are very easy to root against, with the exception, of course, being Nolan. I mean, I love her, but like in this movie, especially, good God, like the atrocities that you see in the war crimes committed on all of these people, even before the revolutions begin, is just like you want these guys to go down. And when you see in the final scene the people just tearing the soldiers apart and kicking them down and beating them and killing them, I'm like, fair. Yeah, you go, girl.
And I think that's the ultimate thing with Zorro 1975. It's a Zorro of many themes, of many tones, of many everything. But it works somehow in its own chaotic sense. It never will be great 100% for me. I do have some minor criticisms with it, but it is a strong, essential Zorro. It's not the most iconographical or the most well-handled, but it's the most Zorro in the 1970s. And that's what it is. And I think that works very well for what it does. And plus, as a culture touchstone of the mid-70s like Italian wave of films internationally, like Japan, France, China, it also serves a bit of a cultural signpost. It's all these different forces. Francis Alain Delon, Tokyo Josari, hot off the Ringo movies in the 60s.
Yeah.
And you have music by Oliver Onions, who were in high demand at that point, scoring films that were both comedies, serious cop dramas, westerns. And so you have this big production, relatively for a foreign film of that time, that just feels like a cultural zeitgeist accidentally. And I feel like that's the most... It's a film of many... It's one that needs to be... I mean, people should dig deeper into it a bit more, since I think it's been read off too much as the goofy farcical Zorro, where he puts a Z in a guy's ass. But there's a bit more to it under the surface that's very interesting, I find.
Yeah, it's like we definitely don't see a lot of Zorros like it. Well, yeah, it is very goofy and silly and farcical. It's also very thoughtful, as we've mentioned before, and it's like it is definitely a movie that will kind of have you stop and think about like the
It's not the most psychological Zorro, though. The most psychological Zorro piece of film is Shadow of Zorro, as we all know.
I was gonna say the new show, but yeah, definitely. I mean,
Shadow of Zorro, I can't talk about that sometimes. It is it's not great, but I do kind of like it. It's only because Robert Hunter is villain in that film. It's not Boruto levels good, but it is pretty intense.
I will have to watch that movie again.
I gave you an HD print.
I don't remember.
I gave you an HD print. I gave you.
Yeah, and I will watch it again, but I don't. I just don't remember when. I guess it's like
Watch an old SD copy, like a standard square copy before.
Maybe that's why I didn't remember as much about it, because like it was very blurry.
Yeah, it's in the wrong aspect ratio, likely.
Yeah, I guess.
It's not a great film or great Zorro piece of media, but it is interesting historically, both as a spaghetti western and as a spaghetti Zorro. It is one of the few that feels like a Zorro piece of media, as it's actually set in California. And I feel like maybe they make for a good double feature, because they're both somewhat serious, somewhat comedic Zorros, except this one's more Spanish, while this one we're talking about now is Italian French. And again, the spaghetti Zorro movement, I think we should do a podcast episode on that as well, maybe.
We should, and you should definitely be in it.
Because I have a lot to say. A lot of insane things to say.
I have a lot to say too, but definitely we'll have very different, diverging thoughts on it, because
I think most of them are pretty average. I think a lot of them are average, but they're all interesting in some way or another, whether because it's the actor involved, or the director's filmography, or there's something in it.
Yeah, and I think the added context that you'll bring will make it very interesting, because a lot of my opinions on the spaghetti Zorros I've seen are
there's not a lot of information on them, because
wow, I could have been watching Mask of Zorro or Zorro 2024 instead.
You get that feeling with those things. They're more like for completionists, or people are like, oh, I want to see more of this random Italian intern actor, Fabio Testi.
Yeah, because for people in the audience who are getting into Zorro, I do not recommend any of those movies except the one we're talking about. But for people who have seen every Zorro thing and are like, okay, I want more. I don't care how weird it gets. I want more. Then yeah, watch the Spaghetti Zorro.
In terms of ones I would actually recommend, outside of this one, I think me and Jack will agree on this. Zorro Gets Me Tuesday, aka Samson at Sling Queen.
Yeah, I like that one.
That one is very fun. It's got Pierre Perez as Zorro. You got Alan Steele, Sergio Cayenne as Batiste. It's a mash 'em up. It's Zorro, but you also got this random Italian character who I have to explain like for 50 paragraphs. Batiste. He's been there since the silent era. It's like Hercules, but he's not bound to any time period. He can be anywhere he wants to be. Deal with it. And you put them in this, whatever situation it is. Somewhere in Spain, they gotta go get a document, help the princess get in air, prevent the evil sister from getting it. It's a very goofy movie, but also has an interesting tonal thing. It's fun. It's a romp. Secondly,
it's cool.
I haven't seen it, but I guess some people here in this community would recommend Nephews of Zorro. I cannot. It's an interesting look.
Yeah.
Sorry. You continue.
What I was gonna say was my friend Crow. She's not here right now.
I noticed.
But if she were, she would be defending this movie till the bitter end. It's basically a full-on Zorro parody. So if you like stuff like Gay Blade and maybe the new French Zorro show, this movie will be right up your alley. It is basically, what if Italian Beavis and Butthead walked into a Zorro movie?
Yep, that's Franco and Ciccio, Italian Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, it is basically it. It's like, you take your average Zorro movie, and then you add these two weird morons into it that absolutely ruined all of the characters' days.
It's a new perspective on an old classic.
It is very much a new perspective, and it was a pain for both my friend Danny and I to translate. But I think in the end, for a lot of people, it was worth it because a lot of people tend to really like it a lot, including my.
It seems to be a thing always Zorro fans like. But I've heard interesting look at. A third one, I said Shadow of Zorro. If you can find it, I think it's apparently on YouTube now in HD. So much for me trying to dub it, get the fan dub to work with syncing audio. Apparently, someone's already done for me, but mine just have watermarks. That one has a. If you want to get into early spaghetti westerns and spaghetti Zorros, it's a good intermingling part. You see what spaghetti western was before Leone came in and really shook it up. You get this really dramatic, melodramatic, psychological kind of adventure film with Zorro being hunted by outlaws. And it's an interesting kind of serialized kind of adventure story.
I'm sorry. What year did Shadow of Zorro come out?
1962.
1962, right?
So it was 2 years before Fistful of Dollars.
1962.
Yeah, I know. It shares the name of a video game. It's known as hell.
Full movie. Let's go.
It's on YouTube. It's uploaded by Brent Joe, whatever. It
does not appear to be. Wait, is it also subtitled Zorro il Dominatore?
No, that's a different movie.
No, that's a different movie. And that one's
Shades.
okay.
It's also called Shades of Zorro. If you look up Shades of Zorro, it can also appear. It has many titles. It's Italian things. They tend to have different titles. In terms of other spaghetti Zorros, yeah, so
Zorro in the Count of in the Court of Spain, full film, 1962.
That's different. That's different. Okay,
that one's different. That one's
really good. That one's good. That was a good one though.
Oh, okay.
It was that one's interesting. It's got what's his name? He passed away like last year. Israeli actor, I think. Great actor. He was in.
Oh wait! Oh no! You're talking about Zorro in the Court of England.
Oh no, not Court of England. Zorro in the Court of England.
I like that one. Zorro in the Court of Spain.
It's got the guy who was in Shaft in Africa for like 2 seasons. That one's pretty fun. It's a twin film with epic twin film released like a decade apart. There's also a film from 1968 called Zorro the Fox. You can only watch it in Italian, no English options. Apparently there is a dub on the VHS, but I don't got that. That one has George Artisan in his second time playing Zorro. The first one was in Court of Spain. Zorro the Fox is another interesting one. First off, you know Fritz from this movie? Good. So the actor from this, the guy who played Fritz, also plays the bad guy in this one. Plays a bad guy in this one, actually. This one's interesting because it's half spaghetti western, half Zorro again. It's late 60s, so it came out of nowhere. It has no reason to really exist, but it does. And that's another one. There's one I haven't seen, but it has George Hilton in it called Mark of Zorro, or Who's Afraid of Zorro, so I'll also check that one out. So yeah.
Oh, I've been looking. Wait, you have?
I sent you a copy of it. I don't know if you still have it. I sent you a copy.
I'm going to look in our DMs again, because I've been looking for that movie for years.
So. I believe the link to the Dropbox, so you're going to have to check if you download it. I'm pretty sure you downloaded it.
Yeah, let me... I don't have my D drive on me right now.
I think let me check. I think I called it Mark of Zorro 1975 or something. I think that's what I called it on my file, so if you get it, you can find it that way. If you did download it. But yeah, that's one I want to check out sometime, because it has George Hilton, and I love George Hilton. Don't know, he's a late, great Argentinian actor who was in a lot of spaghetti westerns, often playing this kind of, not Zorro-like, he played rogues and rascals and kind of stuff. Like, gunslingers who had machine guns hidden in sewing machines. He did that kind of stuff. So I think he'd be interesting looking Zorro. Also, that famous Lionel Stander. If you know who Lionel Stander is, he was Cup in Transformers the movie. So it's not that. So yeah, that's what I have to say on Spaghetti Zorros. It's more of an interesting offshoot of spaghetti westerns than it is Zorro. Most of them are not that great, but if you are completionist or have your niche, I guess we can discuss it on a different podcast episode when I watch more.
Yeah, I'll definitely try and devote an episode at some point to those.
If anything, we could just do Zorro against the Cheesesteak specifically. That one's really fun.
Yeah.
It's not.
That one is.
I'm not. Yeah. I don't think I love it as much as you do, but I do think it's pretty good. Pretty fun.
Yeah, it's. Yeah.
It's got a great Zorro.
I think it's. Yeah. Yeah, it's not the greatest Zorro thing, but it's definitely an entertaining one.
It's a good one.
We should probably move back to Zorro 1975.
I gave my closing thoughts in it already, but I already gave my closing thoughts in it, but
Fair. But I will, let's see, I think
we didn't even get to the funniest scene in the movie.
Which one was that?
The Klan scene!
The Ku Klux Klan! Oh, no!
The not Ku Klux Klan. The guys in the road.
We mentioned Fritz before, but we didn't mention his best scene, which is basically him hanging out with Miguel's aunt in like their wagon and them taking a break and resting, only for them to get ambushed by the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, it's not actually the Ku Klux.
It's where the guards in the skies, but they're in the same robe, same Spanish robes that the Ku Klux Klan appropriated. Yeah. So it's this hilarious image of a Prussian guy, barely dressed, with a sword, failing to and wailing himself at some guys who look like Ku Klux Klan members.
As Zorro like beats them up behind a bush.
And then Zorro's in the bush just knocking them out for him. It's a good thing to see this for last, because it's maybe not my funniest scene, I think, but it is the funniest scene at the same time.
I think it kind of sums up the tone. I know we mentioned the theme song, but like if you show someone this scene, it will show you how they feel about the rest of the movie. If they love this scene, they will love the rest of the movie. If they think the scene is stupid, then they will think the rest of the movie is stupid. And like, it's really funny too, because this movie was obviously made in Europe. They probably didn't even think once about like, oh, in America, a hate group uses these robes for their
I want to say that, but the original Django from the 60s did have like footage of Ku Klux Klan rallies used as a reference point for the villain, so either they did know or it was just using a Spanish thing. It was just the Spanish ropes are in the middle of Spain.
Yeah. I forgot the name for it, but to be honest, I'm pretty sure since most of the people involved in this movie would be Catholic, they were probably just thinking of the Spanish Catholic tradition of wearing those robes.
It just happens that across the seas, it looks like in the middle of Nueva Aragon, there's a bunch of Spanish soldiers disguised as Ku Klux Klan members for just no discernible reason.
And every time I show someone this movie, from my friends to my mom to like people online, I hold my breath whenever this scene happens because I don't want to laugh so hard as I hear someone say, "Is that the Ku Klux Klan?" And they just pop into the bushes.
It's an arch nemesis. The Ku Klux Klan.
It is just so funny, and it's not even, it's intended to be funny, but not as funny as it is for American audiences to see Fritz, like,
I think what makes it better is that it's Fritz. It's Fritz. As we established, Fritz is a random character. This just Prussian mercenary bodyguard who has no prior origin in the Zorro media. There's no prior analog as far as I know. So him existing and getting this random showcase spotlight scene, he takes on a bunch of guys who look like Klan members, it kind of just encapsulates this kind of insanity, which I mentioned. The film kind of just is insane. And this single scene, I guess we saved it for last for the best, because it encapsulates the whole movie's tone, essentially.
Definitely, yeah. And it's like, it basically sums up this movie so well. It is a Zorro movie in its DNA. But it is also this wildly insane, different take on the character. You will never again see something like this in this franchise ever again.
It's Zorro Italian style.
And not just in the normal Zorro spaghetti sword and sandals stuff that we've seen before.
That's what I meant. That's what I was saying. It's a common turn of phrase, something Italian style. It was an old joke in the 60s, so the joke is I'm making is that it's Zorro Italian style.
Fair. Well, because, like, what I was going to say was a lot of the this has an even more Italian energy than a lot of the spaghetti Zorros I watched, if that makes sense. Like,
it's very manic. It's got this kind of unhingedness Italian comedies like to lean towards. And this film isn't even full on comedy. It just has comedy in it. And I think that... Yeah.
And that unhinged, silly comedy with characters that shouldn't even be there, but thank God they are, as Zorro is just randomly just interacting with them, it is what makes this movie, and for some people breaks this movie, but I don't care. I love it for that, and I love the characters in this movie so much. I wish some of them would return in something. And overall, I'm happy this movie exists. I love this movie so much. I mentioned my friend, Crow, Abby, before. When she's not talking about nephews or stuff like that, when she actually talks about her favorite Zorro, this one is her favorite. And for a lot of people I've talked to over the years, this one is their definitive favorite Zorro story. And I think that's just so special. How many lives this movie has touched. And its absolute sincere, goofy insanity. It is just... It's so pure and so special. And I think it offers a very unique place in this character's mythos that will never ever be replicated again. It's very much how I feel about the Sequoia Studios Zorro, because both of those are such wildly different but pure takes on the character that have completely changed the entire mythos forever in some of the best ways possible. And ultimately, if you haven't seen this movie, I completely recommend it to you.
It's on most of the streaming services. It's on YouTube in multiple uploads. It's widely available in different forms, cuts, qualities. It's very easy to watch and get your hands on. It has a Blu-ray release in the States. If you can find it, you can watch it. It's very good.
Exactly. I don't guarantee that you'll love it, but even then, it's still something that you have to see. As a Zorro fan, as a spaghetti western fan, as an Alain Delon fan, rest in peace, this is required viewing for you, especially as a Zorro fan.
It's an essential Zorro, basically.
Yes.
It feels very much at the... If you want to talk about essential Zorro, Zorros you gotta think about or talk about. It's one of them. It's up there. It got up there.
Exactly. This is as much required viewing as the Disney Zorro.
Yeah.
And I mean it with full sincerity when I say that. And that is all I have to say about this movie. And before we move on to the next topic, I want to ask you guys if you have anything that you'd like to say before we wrap this part up.
No, I said everything I think I had to. I went over my whole notes. Yeah, that's it.
No, yeah, this is my favorite Zorro movie. Yeah.
That is completely fair. Alright. As for the next part is fan mail, and I am going to go take a look at it right now. Let's see. The first is from Garrison Philho, writing for the Cast of Zorro episode in tribute to Alain Delon. Haven't had much experience with his work, but really liked what he did in Purple Noon, The Black Tulip, and of course Zorro 1975. He showed a lot of range as an actor, from playing twins of opposing personalities and roguish swordsmen to sophisticated sociopaths. He will be missed greatly, and I am grateful for his contribution to cinema. Honestly, I completely agree. As we mentioned before, this man left an indelible mark on not just French cinema, but cinema as a whole. He had a lot of a range as an actor, in not just in this movie, but in all of his other ones, from what I've been told. I've yet to see a lot of his filmography, but I honestly really want to. He is so talented in this movie alone, and from everything I've heard about his career, he just sounds like an absolute treasure of an actor.
Oh, yeah. He's very good at... Again, I bring this up. He's really good at playing, anti-heroes and bad guys. You may be shocked by this. But that was, his bread and butter. It's he's got this... When he was doing that stuff, he had this stare, this both handsome-ish, dead-eyed, murderous stare. This kind of, indifference mixed with passion. It's such a... next fan that brings up Lee Samurai. And Lee Samurai is, such an essentially, Alain Delon film, because it's Alain Delon playing the character who essentially played for a lot of his career. This hitman. He plays a hitman who's so dedicated to his job as a hitman that his whole life revolves around being a hitman. He's so methodical and precise, but also so flamboyant and so specific with the gloves and the hat tip, tipping up the hat whenever he leaves to go to do a job. It's such a specific performance that it works so well, combined with the good direction and presentation of that film as a whole. I haven't seen Purple Noon. I heard it's pretty good. Pretty great. Again, another Alain Delon film I should probably see. There's a lot of films I gotta see with him. But yeah, he was really good. When he did it, he was one of the best to ever do it, basically.
Huh. I genuinely wish that that honestly sums up all of this so perfectly. Like, he is such an important actor in general, and I really wish that I got to know him better than I do now when he passed away. And it's like I already know he's important as Zorro and as an actor, but like every time I hear about this man, he has left this massive imprint on the legacy of cinema itself, and I feel like I need to catch up more on the guy's filmography.
Well, I mean, if you have like Canopy, I don't know if you have it. I think it's a more local thing, but it's a streaming service based around a library, so if you have a library card, you can use it. There's quite a few of his more important films he did on there, like a bunch of films he did with the director. The director of Lee Samurai did a lot of movies with him in them. Two movies with Alain Delon in them, and they're also on there along with Purple Noon. So the films are easily to find. I could say, because they have a lot of big distribution, like French studios will actually bring them over to the States with subtitles or dubs occasionally. So you can find them. You can find them. There's a breadth of content, films, art. I mean, just yeah.
And I'll definitely have to. Yeah.
Put another quarter in the C-word jar for saying content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll definitely have to start binging some of his content.
I don't like saying content. It's a word I try to avoid because it trivializes the whole art and pretentious. I say saying media and medium. Whenever I see content, it's slip of the tongue. I don't want to say that word. Yikes.
That's fair. I try and avoid it as much as I can. I usually like saying media as well. It's also just kind of frustrating because people don't like the word media as well, and it's like, okay, what do you want us to use?
Well, media, I think, works better.
Because
I have a word we could use. We could use the word oeuvre, Ouvre, to describe.
Good one, but I can't say it because it's like it's a hard word to say.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, don't say media either. It's just as bad as content. I'm like, okay, what are we supposed to use? And then they say, like stuff like art or cinema, and I'm like, I'm not calling the Legend of Zorro cinema. No,
I am calling it cinema.
It's by technicality cinema.
I will call it Kino, too.
Real, honestly, I'll call it peak. Legend of Zorro is peak. That's definitely that's all of the fan mail that we have for today, though. One of the things, one of the next topic that we're moving on to is, all right. So, what is your favorite sergeant / secondary villain?
That's hard because I can't tell them apart.
Real.
The problem is the names. They keep either using names or making new names for them. I can't tell. I can tell them apart by image. But you tell me, oh, this one's Gomez, or this one's Garcia, or this one's Galapagos. I can't tell them apart by name, especially since when names get reused. I like them all. They're all funny little guys, but I can't keep them straight.
All right, that's fair. As for you, Sean?
I also can't really tell them apart.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, it's alright.
The one from Family Channel kind of sticks out for being particularly funny, as is Henry Calvin. Calvin?
Yeah, Henry Calvin.
Yeah, from the Disney Zorro. That one's also a bit of a standout. That's Garcia, right?
That is Garcia, yes. And the one from the '90s Family Channel is Mendoza.
Yeah, Garcia and Mendoza, they both stick out. I like them.
Yeah. like those are honestly very fair choices. I would probably say my pick would be Mendoza. I feel like, but also, for me it flip flops between 1957 Garcia specifically because there's multiple Garcias as we've mentioned, and Mendoza. Depends on my mood. Because on one hand, Garcia has one of the best arcs of a non-Zorro character in the franchise. And he goes from very meek and not very intelligent to someone who can hold his own and be his own man and actually be kind of smart sometimes. But we also have Mendoza, who is a complete character, but we learn more about him and why he is the way he is, and we grow to love him more and more. And I think for me, that's it switches between those two a lot. I also have a soft spot for Jacob McGivens from Legend of Zorro. He not as a person, he's the monstrous, despicable, murderous, racist, smelly prick. I just like how much of a buffoon. I like how much of a buffoon he is, basically.
Oh yeah, someone had a term for that. Jobber.
Jobber, yeah, that's what Worm said in a previous episode.
Yeah, first episode talking about jobbers. How about the guy from Mask of Zorro, the real life guy, the real guy who pickled heads, who was somewhere between actually threatening and being a goof.
Yeah, essentially when I talk about secondary villains, I don't just mean the
sergeants,
the sergeant characters. I also mean like the henchmen.
Okay, so the guy from Mask of Zorro, whose name escapes me. The guy is like a real guy.
Captain Love, yeah. Harrison Love is a real guy who killed Joaquin Murrieta.
He's somewhere between... Okay, so I don't like him, or I don't dislike him either. He's somewhere between actually threatening and goofy, and there's certain, like... I find that kind of... It is entertaining. I'll give the character props for that. It's entertaining to watch him, because he's such a psychopath, but he's so cartoonishly, like, psychopathic. Like, the trick shots. The stinking trick shots he does. That's such a stylistic flourish that did not need to be there, but it certainly adds entertainment value because it's like, oh, okay, this guy's just totally psychotic. When he shoots people in midair.
Yeah.
And like the same guy twice.
Yeah, this is the second time I've shot that man while he's flying through the air, and like, I love Captain Love. He's like if Patrick Bateman was a Zorro villain.
Spot on.
Basically.
Spot on.
And, yeah, he's definitely a solid pick. I wouldn't blame anyone for picking him.
He's me IRL.
So true! Captain Love is literally me. He's literally me.
Literally me.
But I guess if that's all for this part. The last part of this podcast is the opinion section. And this one's actually kind of interesting. Is the Legend of Zorro deserving of its hate?
I haven't seen it, but I saw the opening scene where it was like 5.
Deserving of a what you cut out?
Of its hate.
I have no... Well, I've seen the beginning, I've seen the very end of it. I have not seen the middle.
I realized that neither of you two have seen the Legend of Zorro.
I've seen the beginning, I've seen the beginning scene, I've seen the ending scenes. I have not seen the middle of the movie. So I've not seen the parts that are the most hated. Thus, I don't know what to say.
I wasn't aware it was hated.
It has good action scenes from what I've seen, but it seems just kind of like... From what I can gather from it, the tone, the mood from it, it's not as strong as the original. Combined with some interesting plot decisions that are a bit baffling. So what I can gather, it's not awful, just disappointing, is what I think the general
perception is. In the theater.
But,
I should probably check it out sometime, so I haven't seen it, even though I've seen the first film.
Yeah. I do recommend you see Legend of Zorro at some point. It's
the whole thing. I've only seen the beginning and ending.
Alright, I feel like, I'll ask a question I think we can all answer then. What is, in your opinion, your favorite scene in Zorro 1975?
Oh, okay. Can I just be cliche and say the end fight? I'm going to say the end fight. The end fight's just the most well-executed part of the movie that's got the right mix between the comedy, being a bit zany, most zany, but still zany. Okay, when I say fight, I want to say the whole wedding sequence towards the end of the movie is the whole sword fight. Let's just say that the whole sequence at the church at the end of the movie is so well executed. You got the maddening increase of the villains like insanity. You got the excellent sword fight, no music. It's almost uninterrupted. The comedy, not the most zany, it's most well handled and most well executed. The certain amount of grittiness, the pre-theme shot is again a certain element of the film that's present. It's the film condensed. If the clan scene, the scene with Fetz is the film's most condensed scene, and then this is the movie in its most as a whole package, as a whole sequence. The end fight, yeah.
Definitely, the whole ending sequence with the church and the fight in general, for a lot of people, that is their highlight of the scene, or the movie.
He took the one I wanted to say, so I'm gonna say that my favorite scene was the scene where the the German fought the clan.
Fair. We did talk about those earlier, and I think for me, it's definitely the scene where he talks with Chico, as I kind of mentioned before why that scene hit me so hard. It is very funny, but it is also genuinely very heartbreaking, and I feel like Chico is kind of part of the heart of this movie. He resembles a lot of the goofy comedy and stuff with the stealing of the dude's goats and stuff
chickens!
Like that. But oh no, my goats, they're running away, no! But also, he also he represents a lot of the dark themes of oppression and the damage that it can do to the human heart, and why having hope is so important to pulling yourself out of that darkness. And I know people say I'm going to be reading too much into this movie, but no, that is kind of the whole point. It is the faith of this small child in a mythological character that saves Nueva Aragon in the end from oppression. It is him and the other children holding on to the small hope that one day someone will come and just do good. That eventually leads to the cycle being fulfilled in someone coming in to do good, and even better than what they thought. And I feel like Chico as a character is very underrated, and a lot of people who love this movie don't talk about him as much. Probably because he doesn't fight people with a sword and stuff. That's fair. But in terms of, I'm someone who, as I've gotten older and I've watched these movies more and more, I've grown to appreciate the social themes of these movies a lot more. I think it's why I love the themes of cultural solidarity and spiritual healing of Zorro 2024, the Sequoia Studio show. But the idea of the broken and hopeless people of Nueva Aragon rising up in their faith in Zorro, all starting from the wish of a small child, is so impactful. And as a franchise that finds itself often in the hearts of small children wishing for a better world, including yours truly when he first saw Zorro, it's just very meaningful and very impactful for me. It's my favorite scene. And that's definitely all I have to say about that scene. And I feel like that's pretty much it. I'm very much glad to have you guys on here.
It's my first time.
Honestly, welcome to the podcast, King. I'm genuinely glad that I got to talk to you in here.
Call me Gold.
Gold, sorry. Alright, it was honestly a genuine pleasure to have you on here, Gold. You are really fun. Both you and Sean are absolutely fun to, joke off of and just talk about Zorro with. A lot of you guys, like, a lot of you guys are really fun, and with Gold, like, you really know a lot about spaghetti westerns and about older Zorro stuff, and I absolutely cannot wait to have you watch more Zorro projects to see your thoughts on them.
Yeah, I really gotta watch Sequoia. I gotta watch Sequoia because
you definitely do.
I keep putting it off because I'm too busy watching like Tom Clancy shit right now. I gotta stop watching these Bronson movies. I gotta get my game back into here.
That's fair. Well, with the next episode, we're definitely going to be picking back up and watching Sequoia. This one was a little bit of a break to honor Alain Delon. But with that out of the way, I'm Jack Clock. This is King Goldmod and Sean, and we are signing off.
Signing off.
Good night, everybody. And yeah, Gold, it was nice to get to know ya. Good night.
Good night.